All right, well, I have the distinct honor and pleasure to introduce my leader, and I don't use that term lightly. Pat Ryan, a widely respected entrepreneur and global insurance leader, formed Ryan Specialty Group in 2010. RSG is an international holding company which includes wholesale brokerage, highly specialized underwriting companies, we have some of those folks here today, and specialty services designed for brokers, agents, and insurers. The company has offices across North America and the United Kingdom. Prior to launching RSG, Pat founded Aon Corporation. I don't know, has anybody heard of them? And served as its chairman and CEO for 41 years. At Pat's retirement, Aon had more than 500 offices in 120 countries, generating revenues then in excess of $7 billion. Pat has received a number of accolades throughout his career. In 1987, he received the esteemed Horatio Alger Award, which honors those who are dedicated to the principles of integrity, hard work, perseverance, and compassion for others. In 2008, Pat was inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, one of the nation's oldest and most prestigious honorary societies and independent research centers, founded in 1780. No, Pat was not born in 1780. Just clarifying. Also in 2008, he was elected to the International Insurance Society Hall of Fame and received the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Lifetime Achievement Award. He was named by Brigham Young University International Executive of the Year for Corporate Integrity. Other career tributes include Insurance Leader of the Year from St. John's University and the Insurance Federation of New York's Free Enterprise Award. Pat has been a member of the Northwestern University's Board of Trustees for 37 years, 14 of which he served as chairman. In 2009, Northwestern awarded Mr. Ryan a Doctor of Humane Letters degree. Also that year, Pat was inducted into the Northwestern Athletic Hall of Fame. 4 years later, in 2013, he received the Northwestern Alumni Association Medal of Honor. This is the highest award granted by the Northwestern Alumni Association to an alumnus who combines superior professional distinction and/or exemplary volunteer service to society with outstanding record of service to Northwestern. Pat has received numerous insurance and community awards and also served as the chairman of the Chicago 2016 Olympic Bid Committee. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Pat Ryan.
Mike. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to be here in Florida. I usually like to come in January and February, but August is pretty good too. It's pretty nice here. You'll excuse my mask. This is a real test of how the genders look at somebody wearing a bandage across half their face. 9.5 out of 10 guys say, "What does the other guy look like?" 9.5 out of 10 ladies say, "Oh, you poor dear." It's true. So we are different. And that's what makes life really good, isn't it? We're all different. And we're in a great industry. And I want to talk a little bit about our industry and a lot of the changes that have been forecasted, many of which haven't happened. Talk a bit about some of the changes that have happened, and talk a little bit about some changes I think will happen. And I'd like to start by saying that I am extremely bullish on our industry. We've had the really good fortune of hiring a lot of young people, because we started with a clean sheet of paper in 2010. And people always say, well, what are the millennials like? And are they a sense of entitlement? Or do they work hard? And we were doing at a board meeting yesterday a review of our benefits plan. And the average age of a Ryan Specialty Group employee is 33. I was shocked. I mean, I see all these young people around me moving quickly, so I go faster because they're moving quickly. But it was really impressive. And so we're attracting, and the industry is attracting, a lot of really bright young people. And that's what our industry's always been about. It's a talent industry. The industry has, those who have prospered in the industry have been able to attract really high quality people. Attract them, get them educated, trained properly. I was really impressed, just digression here, that these scholarship students have the opportunity to learn from the legendary Marcus Payne. That's a terrific opportunity. Because Marcus Payne has probably been the architect of more and better educational programs for brokers and agents in this country than anybody I know. So I was impressed by the fact that opportunity is available to your scholarship students. But bringing them in, getting them well prepared, and teaching them a specialty. I've always believed that the money in our industry is in the specialties, but also it's not just the money, it's the security. So if a young person comes into our business and becomes an expert in some particular phase of the industry, like a great property broker or a great professional lines broker, or for that matter, underwriter, but a differentiating talent, they will always be employed in our industry. I tell young people who are coming in, you're thinking about going into commercial banking or investment banking or consulting or the tech world. They don't have the security that the insurance industry has. If you learn if you get to be an expert, you learn a specialty, you have an expertise, you will always be in demand. You'll never be unemployed unless you choose to be unemployed. You may leave where you're working, but there's a huge demand for that knowledge and that skill set. So I preach this to bringing young people in the industry, and I really have experienced it. And as I look at the changes and the opportunities, the first change I like to reflect on was a forecast that never happened. But many of you are of an age that you were in the business in the 90s. And in the 90s, and then on into the early part of this century, there was constant chatter about the agent and broker being disintermediated. They're going to be taken out of the chain. The chain is going to be shortened. The supply chain is going to be shortened. And you saw back in the dot-com days, the late 90s, where travel agents got disintermediated. A lot of other intermediaries were disintermediated. So people kept predicting that for the insurance industry. As a matter of fact, in 2000, the RIMS Association did a study, a survey, and they surveyed all their members and said, in the next 3 to 5 years, this was 2000. In the next 3 to 5 years, are you going to be using your broker or your agent less, significantly less, more, significantly more. And 71% said less or significantly less. The opposite happened. The opposite happened. And why did the opposite happen? The opposite happened, and why have we not been disintermediated, and why do I believe we won't be disintermediated, either by everybody going direct and shortening the change, or by technology? It's because we bring two sets of values in our value prop that are timeless, will always be needed. The first is advice, and the second is advocacy. And you know this because you all, in one way or another, sell insurance for a living. But you sell to people, they need advice. They don't need a help desk. They don't need to read something. They need advice. And secondly, and this is nothing derogatory about insurance carriers, but the broker and the agent is the advocate. That's the second value prop that we bring. We're their advocate. I can't tell you how many people over my more than 50 years in the industry have said to me, I'm buying from you because I believe in you and I trust you, and you better be there for that claim because I'm calling you. And that's what they do. They don't call the insurance company. They call their guy. They call their person. And so disintermediation is not in our future. But we have to be smart about what we do. We have to recognize how important our advice is. And we have to stay current on all the subject matter that is relevant to the advice that we are responsible to give to our client. And then we have to really understand that role of the advocate. We have to get them the best possible terms we can get them. We have to work on their behalf when carriers are taking a different position, a reservation of rights, or actual declination of a claim. That's our responsibility. So we have a value proposition that when we work it, it's irreplaceable. So that was the story on what was going on back then. And now people are talking about, well, the internet is certainly going to take the broker and the intermediary, the agent, out of the equation. Not true. Here's my belief, our company's belief, that, and we all know this, but it's worth repeating, there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars being put into InsurTech. New ventures by venture funds, by private equity funds, by insurance carriers, by technology companies, all looking at the insurance industry as this big, ripe opportunity to disrupt it and say these brokers and agents aren't worth what they get paid, they're not needed. We'll have a technology goes direct to the insured, and goodbye broker, goodbye agent. Well, I'm not going to name the company because I'll get in trouble with the carrier, but we have a business where this carrier is a broker-driven distribution system, and we do about $300 million of premium with them. And they have, 2 years ago, started a direct to the insured internet sale. And last year they did $1 million. So we have to realize our value. Now what's really important as we realize our value is that we also understand that we don't have the appropriate technology. And so partnering with people, insurance people and technology people, I believe is the solution. Because we need to bring new technology to our industry, and lots of us are working on that and are doing that, but not to bypass the agent or broker, but to work with the agent and broker. And I think that that is the distinct difference. But that's going to be, in my opinion, that's going to be the winning formula. And we're not going to be disintermediated. We're going to be much more sophisticated. We're going to be much more enabling of our client. And really importantly, we're going to be taking frictional costs out. And let me say that we all know that the costs in the insurance chain are too high. They're too high. Oh, I'm drinking somebody else's water. Sorry about that.
My bad, Dad.
Okay, well, I've got your cold now.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so it's the working with, but we've got to get costs out of that. We've got to get a lot of the frictional costs down so that costs are not 40 and 50% in the premium. You know, they're down in the 20s, in the low 20s, the mid 20s. And that's what will happen over time with the appropriate involvement of technology. So the second part that I am extremely bullish on is what we're all involved in, and that's the E&S market. The E&S market is invaluable to the insurance industry. Going back to 2000, I know that seems like a long time ago to some of you. Some of these 33-year-olds that I work with say, do you remember way back in 99? I remember way back in 69. So I lost my train of thought. I thought that was so funny. Anyhow, the E&S market in 2000, right before the hard market started with the World Trade Center, there were 5 wholesale-only markets. The E&S market had 1% of insurance, the U.S. insurance market. $6 billion of premium. 1%. At the end of 16, there are 65 insurance carriers who have at least one wholesale-only line of business. And many of them, not enough, but several are wholesale only. But many of them are a limited appointment. So they'll appoint 4 or 5 large brokers, large brokers, but then it's wholesale appointments after that. And you're seeing a lot more of that kind of distribution strategy. So when the guys left the Lexington to go to Berkshire, they went to a limited appointment strategy. 5 retailers, the rest wholesalers, and a limited number of wholesalers. Now, one change that is happening, but it depends on where you are in the marketplace. But a very significant change is that retailers have reduced the number, and significantly, the number of wholesalers that they use. So when I was at Aon in the 90s, we had 200 wholesale appointments. Aon, Marsh, Willis started it out and went to 3 or 4. The top 100, for the most part, almost all of them, have gone to 3 to 10. And the whole principle of that is it's too costly to do business with so many. Now here's where differentiation really comes into play. They there's a movement to now repeat that with MGA cover holder relationships, because they're costly to have many different relationships. But what happens is their brokers say, oh, we can't get rid of that cover holder or that MGA because they've got something that we can't get anyplace else. And that gets back to the differentiation. So with all of the consolidation that's going on, and you see it with a lot of your clients, I was doing some studying of Assured Partners and Acrisure the other day, and it's just amazing what they've done in Assured Partners. Started in 2011. They have $820 million of revenue in 2016, growing at 40% a year. 170 branches. Acrisure started in 2005, and they've done something like 117 branches. And Acrisure has made 170 acquisitions, and they've gone from scratch to $650 million of revenue, buying up relatively small brokerages, rolling them up. So that's a phenomenon we all have to be aware of. So that differentiation becomes really important. As those brokers get rolled up, you want to be one of the people who they need because you've differentiated. They need you for their clients. So people say this is a relationship business, and it is a relationship business. But relationships don't cut it. When they're looking for cost cutting, if you're not differentiated, if there's not a reason to stay with you besides that they like you and they play golf with you and you're a good friend and blah, blah, blah. So the phenomenon of the roll-up is something that we all have to be conscious of as a change that's going to accelerate. Because the private equity funds have just discovered this load of gold called renewable premium, and what they then call free cash flow. So an insurance agency or brokerage produces all this renewable premium, and it's predictable, and there are not a lot of CapEx expenses needed to operate an insurance brokerage. Therefore, the free cash flow. So you see these incredible value changes for insurance brokerages, and that's why a lot of people are selling. They're seeing historical all-time highs of multiples on their cash flow, and they're saying, well, if they'll pay me that much, I'll take it. So, but it's the result of this free cash flow. So we all have to be aware that as these changes take place, we have to adapt. And the adaptation is to embrace technology and to embrace change, but to have technology that works with you. To embrace change, or if you don't embrace the change, you're going to get run over by the change. Embrace change, but find that market niche, find that differentiation that will keep people saying, all right, we're making all these changes, but we can't change them. We need them. And I've talked to, obviously, we do business with all of the large brokers and all the top 100 except for 2. But we also do a lot of business with Tier 2 and Tier 3 brokers. And everybody is looking to economize. But they all say, and I've talked to leaders, well, we'd like to cut that back, but we can't. Because our producers say, we need them. So my message to you is to always make sure you're in that category of we need them. Not we like them, not even that we trust them. Because the people that they need, they can learn to like. Let's face it, most people in our industry are honorable, and they can trust them. So I think those are really important fundamentals that I'd like to leave with you and share with you. And then as I talk about the change of the M&A activity, Lauren and I had a little visit before, and we talked about, and I believe in this principle, we didn't use these words, but this is what we talked about, that with every adversity is a flip side opportunity, if you look for it. So change can present be an adversity for people. With all of the change, the M&A, they're people who've been riffed, who've been let go. So there are a couple things they can do. They can retire, or they can look at it as an opportunity and say, now I've got this whole landscape to look at what I'd really like to do in my next career. And people who were part of Chubb, and the ace guy won out, have set up MGUs. They're entrepreneurs. Or they've gone with startups and they're chief underwriting officer, chief property underwriting officer, whatever. So with all of this change, there are opportunities if you look for them. And there's huge capital to back people with good ideas and talent. So there's startups all over the place. So as these smaller brokers are getting rolled up, some people within those brokers are saying, well, I don't want to be a part of that. I think I'll start my own agency. I'll start my own brokerage. And there are people who will back you. I remember back in the late 90s, Aon bought a company in London, mid-market broker, in England, mid-market broker. And fortunately, we paid a low enough price because we knew that those mid-market brokers were not going to stay with that. They were going to go down the street or start their own. And about 40% of those brokers didn't show up at the closing. They were down with their friend who they brought something he didn't have, or they started their own. And today, there are lots of very successful brokerages. In fact, WKFC, who are one of our great companies of Ryan Specialty. One of the four founders of WKFC was the guy I had to fire. I thought he would hate me. He loved me. He said, you did me a favor. He was a reinsurance broker, and there was a consolidation when Aon bought Frank B. Hall. And he said, I was free. And I said, what? He said, I'm going to think of what I can do. And with three other guys, he was the K of WKFC, Tom Kennedy, and they created this great company 24 years ago, or 23 years ago. So when we went to get together to buy him, I assumed he was going to be kind of not so happy with me. He said, I love you. Now you're going to pay me all this money. So be assured that this industry provides opportunity and that you should all look for that as these changes keep rolling. So I'm going to close with just a couple of thoughts, and then we're going to have Q&A. And pardon the personal references, but I get asked all the time about founding Aon and then RSG, and how do you make that work? And it's just a simple fundamental. There's no genius attached to it. It's all about getting really high quality people, getting them trained by a guy, if you can, like Marcus Payne. And it's setting a culture. First of all, getting them to be experts in something, or hiring experts. But then setting a culture that everybody trusts each other. We're in a trust business, so all we provide is a promise. People who really are client-centric, care passionately about the client. They're empowered. They believe in teamwork. They're in a position where they can self-optimize, meaning they can become the best that they're capable of being. That they have a voice that people listen to, and that everybody listens to their clients. That they respect diversity, and they want to win. Magical things happen. Those are all things everyone in this room knows. It's just a matter of common sense and treating people right and respecting them. And then great things happen. Ready for Q&A? Thank you.
No, you're fine.
You want me there?
No, you're good. I'm good, yeah.
I thought he was going to sit on my lap.
You're like a father figure, Pat. whatever you need, whatever you want, Pat, it's up to you, buddy.
I'm more like a grandfather to most of the people I work with.
Yeah. Great presentation, Pat. I really enjoyed that. I'm used to hearing it, not used to hearing it, but every time I hear it, it's just amazing to hear you speak. You're an amazing man. Well, we asked everybody in the association to send in some questions. We kind of consolidated them into a number of questions. We've got a little bit of time here, so that's good news. If you folks in the audience want to start thinking now about some questions that you might have that are not on these lists, I will break in periodically and ask. Generally speaking, as Pat, you know, when you ask people for questions in the audience, you hear crickets oftentimes. So we've decided to come up with some questions here. You touched on some of these things as we're going through, so if we want to move past them, we can do that. One of the first questions we have is, what do you see as the biggest threat to the E&S industry?
I think the biggest threat to the E&S industry would be carriers who don't focus appropriately on which risks belong in the E&S industry. There's a temptation, particularly as the markets get softer, for people to move business out of the E&S industry into the admitted market, into Bermuda, and even into London, and risks that don't belong there. So when we go through the cycles, and obviously we're at a very low end of the soft cycle here, in fact we saw a lot of business in 15 and 16 get moved to London out of the U.S., out of the E&S market that didn't belong in London. I mean, London is a great market. They're really our largest market, but for certain risks. And the danger is when people really working to grow because they're having trouble, carriers having trouble growing, moving business out of the E&S market. So that's what has happened in the past. Now, a lot of those risks that moved out in 15 and 16 are already coming back. Some of them wounded, coming back into the E&S market. So I think it's our job to keep the
carriers understanding what business really does belong in the E&S market. The E&S market has the flexibility to deal with these risks that belong. The admitted market, and often London, don't have that flexibility. And Bermuda as well. So.
Thank you. Excellent. The next question, you actually touched on it a little bit during your speech. And I go back in my history in 1985 when I got in the business. I started as an underwriter with Fireman's Fund Insurance Company, and some of the old-time underwriters were living in this paranoid world of artificial intelligence. And we're talking 85, so 30-something years. It's nothing like what we have today. Historically, there have been various channels of distribution, including direct-to-consumer, insurance agents, wholesale, including MGAs, et cetera. With the advent of artificial intelligence, what do you think that means to the average producer, broker, underwriter? And you kind of answered this a little bit during your presentation with me.
Well, I'll elaborate on it. We and others, but we are developing technology, and it's pretty far along, that really employs artificial intelligence. And it's being developed by technology and insurance people. But it is developed to support the agent and broker. Now, there obviously are direct markets. Certainly in the auto insurance, private passenger auto, Progressive, Geico, they're good companies and they do very, very well. But there's a certain percentage of people who will buy their insurance that way. You still have the huge State Farm system, the huge Allstate system, the huge farmers, where they want their agent and broker for the reasons I talked about earlier. And I just believe that when you get into commercial insurance, the complexity accelerates, and particularly this E&S risk. I mean, E&S risks by definition, even if they're small, are complex. And you need the advice of an agent and broker. So the key is for the agent and broker to stay well informed and really can be a trusted advisor and bring value. And then that role of the advocate. I'm passionate about that, and sure there's going to be some business that will go direct in the commercial world, the small commercial world, bypassing an agent or broker. It's going to be a small percentage.
Do you think that percentage will come back almost similar to what you were talking about with stuff going into the admitted marketplace? So these people that think that they can, go online and enter the information they need to get the coverage that they need, and then all of a sudden they have an event that causes a problem. You think it'll come back?
Yes, and I'll give you an example. At our board meeting yesterday, we had a discussion on this very subject, and one of our directors is a retired president of Northwestern University, but he's the chairman of the Poetry Foundation, and they have a lot of capital. They've got a big, huge gift. So they expanded their facility, and their neighbors damaged their property. So they don't have a big staff. And they were handling the claim and getting no response from the insurance company. And it was a real nuisance, and they couldn't repair it because they needed the response. And because our director's on our board, he knows the value of going to the agent. So he said to the CFO, don't go to the insurance company, go to your broker. And if the broker can't handle it, get a different broker. And he used that as an example. They're a small non-for-profit, but they pay a chunk of premium. And they needed that intermediary. And those stories are repeated thousands of times a day all around the country, around the world.
I mean, there are definitely some folks in the industry that are concerned. Binding authority underwriters feel like they're not going to have a job because of the artificial intelligence. I think I do agree with you that that's not the case. There is value to be added.
Let me address the binding authority phenomenon, and will they be out of a job? The answer is no. I agree with you on that. I'm going to give you my reason why. Whatever the artificial intelligence is, and to implement artificial intelligence in the E&S market is about as complex an initiative as I've ever seen. Loading all of the data to get competitive quotes is just onerous. It's a very long process, so it's not for the faint of heart, and it takes a huge amount of money. But even when you do that, they're only going to be able to underwrite electronically a certain percentage of the risks. There are going to be all kinds of E&S risks that need human interface, even if you've got the greatest of electronics. So binding authority underwriters are going to be empowered and enabled by technology, but they're not going to be replaced.
Excellent. I've got several other questions here, but I wanted to just check and see if anybody in the audience had anything specific they wanted to ask Pat. We got a couple. Second round, good.
You had stated that in 1999 it was like 1%, and in 2016, what percentage is it E&S?
Oh, maybe I didn't finish that. It's a little under 11, like 10.7. I didn't finish that. I cannot think back in my mind. I said 1 and I didn't say what it was not. 10.7, thank you.
Repeat the question.
Oh, the question was, what is the percentage of the E&S industry? The E&S is of the total commercial industry in 2016. I referenced 1% in 2000, and then I didn't complete the thought. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. So 10.7% E&S is the total commercial insurance industry in the U.S.
And I have a follow-up to that. In the growth category, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the E&S market as far as, what kind of product?
In the growth category, where do you see, repeat it one more time?
Which specific products in the E&S industry will be the growth? Construction. I believe energy, as energy ebbs and flows, but that is a long time E&S. I think healthcare, certainly cyber. If you look at the property industry, for example, a huge changing risk today is habitation. Both the property and the liability. I mean, those losses are running wild. So when you get these kinds of changes, they need the E&S market. And one of the things that I've always believed in, and not enough retailers focus on this, is that when you want to get organic growth, which is really hard to get in insurance brokerage in this soft market, you should be prospecting for tougher risks. Now, a lot of brokers and agents and even Main Street brokers will say, oh, that's for those other people. But they need that to grow, and that's where the money is. So, it's our job, if we're wholesalers or if we're cover holders, is to get that message out to those distributors, those Main Street brokers, that there's a lot of growth opportunity, therefore profit opportunity for them as their admitted market business is shrinking, to focus in on getting into the E&S market. And not enough of them do that. They're missing a big opportunity.
Almost, I can remember years ago going to visit a retailer. I was at a luncheon and I was talking to a retail agent across the table, and he's like, Oh yeah, no, we don't do E&S. It's, we just focus on the stuff our admitted markets do. Now he's one of my larger producers.
Yeah. There's untapped opportunity. The greatest asset the U.S. insurance industry has is this incredible distribution system. I mean, the 24,000, whatever it is, agents and brokers around this country are just a huge asset of the industry. And they all have trouble growing. And they should be working the E&S market.
Ron, you had a question?
Yeah. 50 years ago, roughly, this surplus line business started to take off, the surplus line and broker form. And they were mostly small entrepreneurial shops. Today, we have a different picture. And back then, and going even through the 90s, it was relatively inexpensive to start off. It didn't take a lot of cost for infrastructure. Today, infrastructure costs are very high. You talk about technology, the cost of technology is enormous, and you've got to have it to keep up. Do you think today, between the consolidation, both for carriers as well as wholesalers and as well as retailers, and the costs involved, that there's still opportunities for entrepreneurial operations to open up or even circle those existing ones to continue to maintain a position as they have in the past?
The question is, with all the consolidation and the cost of technology, is there really the opportunity now that there was back in the 80s and 90s for startups in the wholesale? And I'm assuming you mean cover holder MGA as well. It's tougher in the wholesale because of the rules that the consolidators. For example, Acrisure has rolled up these 170 agencies. Now they've gone to 5 wholesalers. Now those 170 agencies were probably doing business with 400 or 500 wholesalers. So that's hard to fight. The only way a wholesaler can do that is to really differentiate in a product line or an industry, and then it's tougher. But on a cover holder or an MGA, they want to consolidate them, but they also don't want to lose their business. And they don't want to lose their brokers. And when the broker says, we can't stop doing business with this managing general agent because I have no other market to go to for these 4 risks, they're not going to cut that off. So it's, again, the specialization that if you find, and once again we were talking about differentiation beforehand, and if you have something that nobody else has, and often you can get it from London as a cover holder, then you're not going to get cut. But it is tougher. I'll have to acknowledge that. But there still are the opportunities. And the opportunities are to merge the cover holder with people like us who do have all the appointments. And you still have the entrepreneurial opportunity.
Ron, you good with that? You have a follow-up? Good. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Kathy.
What do you see as the impact or future for alternative capital markets and products driven by that? Do you see it increasing? Is it long-term? Is it a short-term play?
The question is, what do I see as the future for alternative capital? And was it just a phenomenon of this period, or will it continue to grow? I saw that Markel sponsored something last night. Markel just did a brilliant acquisition buying State National. Brilliant. Because State National, and those of us who've been around the business for a long time, know how difficult it is with state regulators to have fronting companies. And the landscape is loaded with the skeletons of fronting companies who went broke. But State National has done it really effectively. So a State National and that phenomenon, and there are others starting up, just to be legitimate fronting companies, are a godsend to alternative capital because they get them into the marketplace, they get paid their fee, and the alternative capital goes to work. So I believe that as these fronting opportunities are expanded, there'll be alternative capital falling right behind those and funding those risks. So I think they really are going to have a new value add that's going to grow pretty significantly. Now, what I like about that is it gives all of us an opportunity to say to a State National or to a newly created fronting company with alternative capital, here's our product idea, here's our industry idea, give us an exclusive on that, and we'll do all these great things for you. Those will be able to be done. So I think there's an opportunity for creativity that comes from the alternative capital partnering with these funding opportunities where they don't have just, excuse me, it's your fault, it's his fault because I drank out of his bottle. They don't have the channel conflict. And channel conflict is one of the biggest problems of bringing creative ideas to the industry, because they'll say, well, we can't do that because we're doing something kind of like that with all these other brokers and we don't want to get them upset. So a fresh sheet of paper with new capital provides for a lot of opportunity.
To follow up on that just a little bit, do you think that as the next great return on capital that these people can get, is that going to, because right now insurance is a good return on capital for those folks, as other things come along, do you think it'll leave and go to those other places, or do you think it'll continue?
There are some permanent changes that have taken place with capital providers, and I think that some alternative capital will come in and out, but there is specific money raised just to be insurance alternative capital. And there's so much capital, as I said. You got these family offices, you got pension funds. I mean, there's this money from all over the world that is dying for yield. And I think that those opportunities are going to continue. Another form of new capital, which is really pretty interesting, are pension funds. Pension funds have been investors in various insurance enterprises. But now some pension funds want to be owners. Pension funds have very long-term capital. And they want to own. So you'll see more of that. So the carriers all have to be very alert to the fact that there's all this capital that wants to come in and work in their place. And that's a good opportunity for all of us.
Yes.
How and when did you actually start in the insurance business?
Well, the when is embarrassing. 1959. And the how and the why, I guess you want to add to that, is I was at Northwestern in 1958 reading the Wall Street Journal, and I read about 3 guys in Atlanta who were making $100,000 a piece selling life insurance. And I thought, my God, $100,000 $100,000. That was a huge amount of money. And then there was a guy in our fraternity who graduated, who came back to sell the guys, and he stuttered. And he was driving a big 57 Cadillac convertible. And I said, God, this guy stutters and he's driving a 57 Cadillac convertible. Think of what I could do. So I only looked at the insurance business. And then I got out of the life business pretty quickly and into what they then call fire and casualty. The life guys said there's no money in fire and casualty. We call it property casualty now, but they call it fire and casualty. But they were wrong. There's a lot of money in fire and casualty. So, but that's how I got in.
Any other questions from the audience? I've still got some more questions, and I think I still have some time, right? So it's all good. Any other questions? Yes.
Question.
Dave.
What are your thoughts on the potential privatization of the NFIP?
What are your thoughts on the potential privatization of the National Flood Insurance Plan?
Well, I'm sort of a private sector person, so I think there's a lot of value to it. I'm biased towards that. I don't like. I mean, I would have liked to have seen the industry replace trade, but politics and certain people in the industry didn't want that, so it didn't happen. But I think the industry is very agile, although flood is such a huge growing risk. But that's what we get paid for. And I like the privatization of many things, and I would be for that.
Anyone else out there? Yes, Rodney.
So Evan Greenberg recently talked about increasing commissions and how it's unsustainable. Do you feel like commissions are going to come under pressure in the future?
Evan Greenberg indicated that increasing commissions is unsustainable. I recall this article that you're talking about, that the agents are always pushing for more commission, especially the national brokers pushing for more commission. And you're asking me, is that sustainable?
Or do you feel like commissions are going to come under pressure in the future?
Do you feel like commissions are going to come under pressure in the future?
I do think commissions are going to come under pressure. I think it's happening now. My answer to that is, why don't you say no? So, I mean, that's really what executives are supposed to do. When somebody asks them for something that they don't want to do, they say no. But I do think commissions, and this happens in soft markets again, particularly public brokers, but all these private enterprises are heavily financed by private equity, and they have to get their returns, they have to get growth. So everybody's pushing to get more money. The ideal way is to get more market share. But if you're getting more market share, but premiums are shrinking, so you're not growing, then you say, well, how do I grow? Well, I'll go to the carrier and get more money. So it's a phenomenon of the soft market. When the market changed in the mid-'80s from a very soft market to a dried up market, commissions came down dramatically overnight. So as markets harden and certain parts of the market harden, carriers will bring those commissions down and just say, take it or leave it. So in 85, I should say, you could say, take it or leave it. And everybody had to take it. And AIG had a field day because they had so much capacity. So the hardening of the market will solve part of that problem. I don't know that regulators will step in. They've regulated consumer commissions. They regulate Medicare commissions. The Medicare products require 80% loss ratio. There could be some of that, but I think it's going to be more from the leadership of the capital providers who have to do it.
Very interesting. Roy.
you're talking about the hardening market. What do you see needing to take place for the beginning stages of the market to harden? I mean, there's so much capacity out there. What's your take on it?
Well, there's a lot of capacity, as you said, but auto is hardening fast. A lot of construction is hardening fast. New York construction is hardening. Habitational, particularly in the urban areas, hardening. There's a lot of pain out there. You look at the combined ratios, there are a lot of people who release the reserves, not any more to do, and they've got combined ratios in triple digits. So I think there's going to be more discipline. It's not going to be a hard market, but wherever losses are really out of control, like truck, like commercial auto, there's real hardening.
Can I ask a Florida question? Last year when Hurricane Matthew was threatening us, we've heard from London that the PML initially on that was over $900 billion when it was projected to come up through the spine of the state. Do you have any thoughts on how that threat still lingers here in Florida with an event like that? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? What something like that could do? I mean, obviously, hard to pass.
So would a $900 billion hurricane impact the marketplace?
Well, there'd be a lot fewer people in meeting rooms. I mean, that kind of loss would just be devastating. But I agree with you, and you know, the history of all of the hard markets were event-driven. And this market wants to get hard in the worst way, but hasn't been able to do it, except for the isolated areas we referenced. But an event, a major event, would give everybody the courage to just raise their prices. And what they do is they tend to raise them broadly because they feel underpriced broadly. So there's that risk, and there's also a huge cyber risk. I mean, there is the fear of these foreign hackers who can really disrupt the economy through hacking. And there are things that could happen that would make soft markets a thing of the past for quite a while.
Kind of scary. The cyber especially is very scary. Ron, do you have another question?
Yeah, I just want to sort of follow up to the past several questions, really. And that is, we talk about alternative capital and we've got trust funds that are pension funds, I mean, that are investing in reinsurance and the reinsurance bond market and all the different vehicles that are out there today that are not necessarily the professional insurance markets. They haven't been in there for a long haul. If you get a major catastrophe, when you get the big one, do you think those markets are going to stick with it, or are they going to look at it, especially if the models are proven wrong and it's not quite as predictable as they thought? Will they stick around?
That's a very good question. Will they stick around if things blow up? Models are mostly wrong. It's the facts. So if it's a real serious blow, I can see a lot of them going elsewhere. Because people who've invested just for insurance and they like it, they can fold their tent pretty fast. I had two friends, hedge fund owners, who came in, saw that they were chasing property cat rates down, did a U-turn and got out. So there's been a lot of U-turns already, and that's without losses. So I think it's pretty logical that if they get burned out, that they would go
me get back a couple other quick questions here. These are kind of interesting questions. What career mistake gave you the greatest lesson?
Well, I saw that one coming, and I was embarrassed to answer it, but I'm going to answer it. At Aon, we had done a whole, incredible number of acquisitions in the 90s, at the end of the 90s. And we lost a brokerage CEO to an aviation accident, and the number 2 to heart attack. So we promoted a new management team, and they wanted to make changes. And I always had an open door policy for people that could come and see me on anything. They said, well, we can't make these changes if you're just going to let people end run us. So you got to agree to step back. So I did. This was called transformation. It was the dumbest plan ever created by a management team. It was so complicated that it was a disaster. Well, in 90 days, the people started to leave, and we lost some clients. And I stepped in and got rid of it. That was the biggest mistake I made. But the lesson, which I knew, but I violated, and this is an old cliche, but in order to expect, you must inspect. So you have to know what's going on. Doesn't mean you're micromanaging, but you have to know what's going on. And I, for 90 days, didn't really know, and that was a painful lesson.
What's the biggest risk that you've taken?
The biggest risk, I suppose, in the 90s, where we globalized because nobody else has done it. Marsh was international. And we started buying up big, large brokers. And in a period of 8 years, we spent about $2.5 billion buying up Frank P. Hall, A&A, Manette, a whole group of international brokers. And so we took on this consolidation. Aon came from being a regional broker to a global broker, and it worked. But when you buy a broker, it's all intangible. They're all intangible assets. And your assets go up and down the elevator every day, and they cannot come back the next day. So, that was a huge risk. It worked out really well, but that was a big risk. And it was at a time when people were saying, brokers are going to be disintermediated. What the heck are you doing? But we were the only ones buying the big ones. And then we forced Marsh into it, and they benefited greatly because they bought Johnson & Higgins, etc. But without our doing what we were doing, they wouldn't have done that. Because they were buying consulting businesses and doing the mutual fund. But anyhow, that was the big risk.
Excellent. I have one more question here, and I think we're just about out of time. If anybody else has one, think of it now because we're running short. What keeps you up at night, if anything?
Nothing.
Nice.
I sleep. Honestly, I just sleep.
I wish there was is there a secret method to that? How does that work? How do you turn the brain off?
I think it has to do with IQ, but I'm not sure.
I must be an idiot. Just kidding. Any other questions?
No, I'm too dumb to realize.
Oh, okay.
I'm too dumb to realize that I shouldn't be sleeping. I should be worrying.
Any other questions from the audience? We got about 30 seconds. No, I just want to say thank you, Pat, very much from me to you personally for accepting the invitation to come down and speak with us today. I really appreciate everything you did. I think everybody enjoyed the presentation, and we hope to see you again one day soon.
Thank you. Good questions.